Hello, everybody. I am super excited to welcome you back to Shine Wealthy. I am here with my friend and soul sister, Paige. She is here from Realm Wellness, and I'm super excited to explore this wonderful idea of how Paige is actually helping women move through depression, anxiety, addiction in multiple ways. So, Paige, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here to speak with our audience.
Thank you so much. It's amazing to be here. I always appreciate an opportunity to connect with amazing women like you and to just serve in whatever way I can.
Yeah, thank you so much. So tell me a little bit about what it is that you do so that our people can kind of get to know you and hear about your amazing gifts that you've got to share with the world.
Totally. Yeah. So I am a subconscious health practitioner. So just like you would maybe go see a regular health practitioner in the Western world, I help people heal from depression, anxiety, trauma, and addiction on a cellular level. And we do that by using an integrative emotional processing system that incorporates over 14 methods from Eastern and Western medicine combined in order for people to unlock their infinite potential on that cellular level and create a life that they desire to live in a sustainable way. So I'm really passionate about this work because I do feel that in society, we are top heavy as far as operating from the top down. And when we do that, we are driven by the subconscious, which is 95% of our brain, and it dictates our involuntary experiences like our symptoms and our thought patterns that get kind of out of control, and our behaviors and our relationships, and essentially anything that we're experiencing that we wouldn't desire to experience is coming from a reactive subconscious place. So when we can attack the 95% versus just the 5%, which is what we use to make our decisions in the day to day, then we can really heal in a sustainable way.
Oh my gosh, so good. Absolutely 100%. I'm like triple clicking on this because, one of the things that I teach my clients inside of my programs are we start with the inner game. We start with the mindset first because of that. The majority of our beliefs, our thoughts, our actions come from that 95% of the subconscious. So how did you get into this? Would love to hear a little bit of your backstory and what encouraged you and inspired you to help women in this way.
You bet, you bet. So I actually just saw a quote the other day that was so encapsulating of my present day experience, which is that, there are people out there, and I include myself in this population, that are fueled to do the unthinkable, right? Because they've experienced the impossible. And that actually goes both ways, right? We're fueled to do the impossible, quote unquote, because we've been through the unthinkable. And so a lot of my story comes from the strife and the struggle of being caught in the Western medical system for far too long without seeing effective, sustainable results. So I was in therapy starting at age 7 for chronic night terrors. I woke up screaming bloody murder every single night to visions and past life traumas and things that I would see, but I wouldn't remember the next morning. So in this day and age, I would call that a psychic or spiritual trauma, right? And that manifested, as well as some other repressed trauma that I'm actually still healing through, that I've uncovered as a result of subconscious healing work. I manifested, this dis-ease and disorder. So it turned into depression, anxiety, self-harm, anorexia. I proceeded to lose over 10 years of my life to struggling with these diseases. And I was in the Western treatment world in a revolving door kind of way for years and years and years. And I'm so grateful to have received that care, right? And there's absolute value for those systems that are in place, but nobody was talking about the somatic processing or the bottom up wellness. And if you don't heal the root trauma, you're not going to heal the quote unquote diagnosis, right? And so I didn't understand what trauma was. I actually studied it in school. I studied the textbook. I did not understand how to integrate that information. I didn't understand what that meant for me as a person. So I was kind of going through the motions, and co-occurringly with treatment, I went to a Buddhist inspired university, and we were studying, mindfulness and cognitive behavioral therapy and dialectic behavioral therapy. And I knew all the isms because I had been through it firsthand, as well as academically, as well as, wanting to somehow find a profession that would serve me and my journey. And so I, through my mom, actually discovered subconscious healing, this particular emotional processing system, when I was in the thick of my worst moments. And I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to understand that life didn't have to be so hard, that I could make a different choice. And I use that phrase lightly because we do have choices that we can make. But when we're in those critical, acute moments, it's the most invalidating thing to say to somebody, make a different choice, because unless we have the framework to help them understand what that means, I think it's counterproductive. And so I do see in hindsight that I had a choice. I was not ready to make it. So I studied integrative care in school, Eastern medicine, Western medicine, and I had to do a whole lot of trials and tribulations before really coming back to what I had learned many years prior. So this system that I use, I got certified in some years ago, and I was passionate enough about it because I had studied everything else under the sun to know that this was the most comprehensive and effective for me. And then I launched a business about it, and here we are. So
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. Holy cow. Yeah. One of the things that, I can totally relate with is, the idea that we might have like a conscious understanding or logical understanding rather of we have choices, but you're right. When we're in the struggle, when we're in the trauma, when we're in the anxiety or the depression, to just know, well, I can just make another choice isn't that easy. It's so not easy. And I love that you are giving, women a system and tools so that when they are ready to make a different choice, that it's not just the strategic piece, it's not just the practical pieces, but it's both. It's that combination of the inner and the outer world. So desperately needed for sure. Instead of just a medication. That's the other thing that I wanted to kind of circle back to is so often, in the Western world, and again, I love being able to have the option of antibiotics if, I need antibiotics, or if I break my arm, I want to be able to have that set and be taken care of for emergency medicine. But there's such a gap in between the putting a Band-Aid on a problem versus really getting to the root cause. And it's so important that I think that we merge these worlds so that we can have both. We can have the, not just trying to put the bodies together at the bottom of the waterfall, but really understand, do the women and or men or people have the right tools and gear to navigate, that stream so that if they do go over the waterfall, they're actually okay and they're not broken, versus just trying to treat everybody who's down at the bottom of the waterfall and not really getting to that upstream solution.
Totally. Absolutely. And, the fuel, like I had mentioned, that comes from within me is that I had to figure it out, because regardless of the resources and access that I had to that conventional care for so many years, I almost was getting worse under that guidance. And so there's so many people out there that of course are stuck in status quo or have these limitations, whether self-inflicted or society, messaging or any of that. It's about client empowerment. It's about feeling empowered to make your own decisions with all of the information on the table. So I love that, you're saying, and I'm so with you about having the choice. This is not about not having the choice to go Western if you want to go Western, right? It's just about knowing your power and that your ability to heal is your nature. It is your design to regenerate and be completely whole. And so if you have a headache, or if you have chronic sinusitis, or if you have gut stuff going on, or if you have an eating disorder, or whatever it is, it's like there are memories that are stored on your behalf to keep you alive that are still stuck in past time. So whether that's childhood or past lives or generational programs that you've come in with, there are stagnances, emotional charges in the body that create dis-ease because it's the only way that it knows how to. And so if we can know our design by nature, which is scientific fact. And then from there, if we have stories in our mind or thought patterns that are like, I don't believe that, or this is just the way it is, or I'm going to struggle forever because it's all I know. Those perceptions are where we start, because underneath all that, the body is constantly working for us to harmonize and to come back to base. And so if there's stuff getting in the way, and more often than not there is, for good reason, you know, that's the work. And so once we start knowing our power, and I love that moment of seeing clients get a glimpse of like, holy moly, it doesn't have to be how it's been anymore. Like I can actually feel better, and I can feel better sustainably, and the symptom isn't operating the way it used to, and I'm not thinking the way I used to. And right, like that is such a beautiful miracle that I want people to start expecting. And so beyond just healing being our nature and saying all these really lovely, nice things in theory, I want for people to know this for themselves. And in knowing that for yourself, our standard for life just heightens tenfold, because there will come a time where you no longer have the tolerance for a sprained ankle, or you no longer, you know, have just a headache without asking, like, what's going on under the surface? Like, how have I been thinking? What's my emotional landscape right now? Like, what are the inner parts of me that really need my attention, that are calling me forth? Or what type of memory is coming to the table that might want my TLC right now? Right. So we get to go all types of places, which is so beautiful.
So good. So you were talking about 14 different modalities, some Eastern, some Western. Could you share just maybe one or two of the different ones that you see work really, really well for, helping women kind of release these subconscious energetic pieces that kind of get stuck?
Yes, absolutely. So what's so cool is that, you know, this is such an intricate process that instead of going to a zillion practitioners, maybe you have your dream team that's at your core, right? Maybe you have your therapist and your subconscious person, and then, you know, nutritionist, or whatever it is that you need, which will be subjective to you. But instead of, you know, going to 20 people doing 20 different things, this is a system where we're not going to do a little bit of everything. We're just going to have a whole new hybrid process that incorporates a lot of philosophies from Eastern Western. So for example, I'd say the first one that I really lean on is chiropractic philosophy and muscle reflex testing. So applied kinesiology, where we get to, you know, use the body's innate reflexes and intelligence and reactive mechanisms to test for where we're going in our journey together in session. So it'll help us actually locate where the subconscious is having a reaction in the mind, body, or energy body, and then we'll harmonize from there. So that's my number one go-to. And people can learn to self-muscle test. It's not necessary to do that in session with me, but that's a really beautiful technique. And then the second one that I would say, which is so huge and so cool, is water consciousness theory from Dr. Masaru Emoto. So for those, I mean, some people know and love to geek out about it, right?
Oh yes, let's geek on it. I love it. I love it.
It's so valuable, and here's why. Dr. Masaru Emoto, a Japanese scientist, he had this huge groundbreaking theory in modern science and modern medicine around how intention is everything. And so he had a study where he put different jars of water, infused different intentions into them, whether it was love or hate or envy or greed, used metal music, used classical music, and studied the crystalline expressions of the water crystals as a result of that infused energy, and discovered that gratitude and love were the highest vibrational expressions on the planet of any intentional energy that you could put in the water. And so when we're embodying this information of like, why does this matter? What does it mean to me? We as humans are more than 60% water. And within the framework of our existence on a musculoskeletal level, on a physiological level, we have different organs and different glands and different cells and elements within us that isolated in an isolated way actually have maybe 75% water, maybe on their own stand at 90% water. And so 60% may not sound like a lot, but when you actually are looking at all the different isolated components that make up the sum of our existence, it matters. And so when we're using neurolinguistic reprogramming, or when we're using positive affirmations, or when we're upgrading the cellular epigenetic expression of our body, there's a reason why it works, because when we have that pure positive intention and we're using that to observe our internal landscape and to shift certain things and to create harmony within certain things, that is actually operating on a cellular, molecular, and energetic level at the same time. And so I love bridging the gap between like the science and spirit, and where does one start and when does one end, because they're so intersected. And you know, the personal and the transpersonal, and the genetics and the epigenetics, and like we have to look at the whole picture, which is why I'm such an advocate for people's wellness, because there really is no other perception of the human experience that is accurate, other than we are here to heal.
Oh my God, that's so beautiful. Absolutely. And I love how, especially today, the more that science, we start moving into, whether it's quantum physics, we're taking the pieces that in the past used to sound more woo, and we're actually giving, no, there's actually scientific proof. And I love that, the things that we're able to prove today are really based in science. And, this, and I forgot his name already. Can you say his name again? The Japanese scientist?
Yep, Dr. Masaru Emoto.
That's right, Dr. Saru Emoto. And if you, by the way, those of you that are listening, look that up. The images are incredible. When you see the snowflake or the crystalline water, it looks like snowflakes. They're just so incredibly beautiful when they're infused with the intention of love or peace or calm or gratitude. And then you can totally see, the difference and what it looks like. I'm not going to give it away. I want you guys to go take a look at these pictures because they're so cool. But you're absolutely right that because we do have this much water in our body, that it would make sense that it's going to affect us. Our intention is going to affect us. Words are going to affect us. Energetically, we get to see that we really are more holistic bodies than just what we, can see with the logical mind, which is so cool.
Absolutely. It is so cool. And I think about that quote that's like, don't believe everything you think. And that's a beautiful sentiment, but it's like, but then what? Right? Because
Yes.
where are those thoughts coming from? Like, how do we get ahead of the quote unquote thought viruses that inflict, harm on our physiological expression? Because just having those thoughts and knowing that they're not you isn't enough to change the thought. Right. And so we have thousands and thousands of thoughts a day, and most of those are subconscious. And most of the time we don't even know whose they are or why they're there or, why they exist at all. And so that can be very disorienting, and that does impact us on a molecular level. And so all of a sudden, if people are starting to have, like the flu, or they're having a detox expression in their body, or rashes or hives or oily skin or whatever it is, it's so easy to be a blind spot for people to make a disconnect there and say, well, I don't have any, awareness of how those thoughts are creating that physical expression. And the woo-woo thing comes to the table because it must be woo-woo in order for that to occur, because it's almost so powerful that it can shock some people. And this isn't just about, going from darkness to light and staying in the light, although that's huge. But it is about like helping people ease the transition from the dark. And then like there's tumult when you first glimpse your own power. It's like Marianne Williamson's quote, right? Our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate, it's that we're powerful beyond measure. And when I witness people seeing their power, it like can scare us, right? It can be scary of like, wait a second, now that my tolerance for the shadow is lessening and my desire for the light is increasing, there's like a spiritual emergence that happens, and also borders on spiritual emergency. And so we have to make this beautiful magic carpet ride a little bit more enjoyable for people so that, we can get to the other side and know that it's going to be okay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's that power of hope. And also to have somebody supporting you through the process is critical. Whether we are, trying to overcome something in our, healing in our physical body, emotional body, energetic body, we can read all the books, right? We can kind of know, have some conscious information, but to actually implement and put it into practice is so important, to have somebody guide you. So I'm so glad that you are actually that guide that can kind of lead people through, because it also makes it happen a lot quicker. Right? Could you share an example of maybe somebody that you've worked with that you've kind of helped move through this process of where they started and what they were able to experience on the other side?
Yeah, absolutely. These are my favorite stories. They really beam me up. I had a client come to me recently who has been doing subconscious work with somebody for, I'd say, 20 years. Okay. And that's dedication and that's commitment, but the struggle was still so pervasive. There was a lot of pathologizing of like, oh, this client must struggle with borderline, or must struggle with bipolar, or must struggle with whatever. And to me, you know, I think diagnoses have a time and place, but I don't appreciate the labels more
Mhm.
often than not, because I just see things differently, and I see them as conversations, and I see the parts within us as messengers, right? So this client was referred to me, and kind of in like this no hope kind of way.
Mm.
And I saw nothing but light from the get, and I will always work to hold the torch for people until they can hold it for themselves. And so we've been working together only for, I'd say, I mean, it's been an intensive, maybe 6 weeks at this
Mhm.
point. And we got to a place where from hopelessness and helplessness, we ended our session, and she said, I'm learning and realizing now that it is my only purpose in life to shine. And I used to come into the world thinking it was my burden to bear everybody's pain and suffering, and I had the weight of the world on my shoulders. And I'm realizing now that if other people judge my light or disparage it, it's on them. It's not my problem. It's not my circus.
Mm.
And all I have to do is shine. And it was like the most groundbreaking moment for this client who had been doing this work for 20 years. And then here we are 6 weeks later,
Mhm.
and there are breakthroughs happening, and there's access to self and resourcing within that I've never seen from her before or heard was possible
Mhm.
from other practitioners before. And so I see miracles like this every day, and I almost don't even want to call them that, because again, it's the
Mhm.
standard of knowing this is our norm.
Mhm.
And so I see people as long as they want to be seen, because
Mhm.
one session with me can be an expedited, 20 years in therapy type of thing. And so we can go for a year, we can go for long-term relationship, or we could do an intensive, like I just shared, where we
Mhm.
can get to the crux of what's happening faster and chip away, and then have that huge release. So
What a gift, Paige. I'm so glad that you chose to move through your own trauma and depression and struggle so that you could bring this forward and shine and help more of us in the world
thank
heal.
you.
Thank you so much. So we are going to pop Paige's information in the description. That way you can connect with her, learn more about her work, reach out to her. She also has a really great freebie. Can you tell us a little bit about what it is that you're going to be sharing with our audience, Paige?
Yes, you bet. So I have a comprehensive affirmation and resource kit for sustained health and
Mm.
wellness. So this is a choose your own adventure type of experience, because I know there's so much information out there about things to do and how to help yourself and detox and all this stuff.
Mhm.
This is something where at the end of the day, I urge you to make one change and one commitment, right?
Mhm.
So it could be as simple as drinking one more 8-ounce glass of water a day, and just stay with that for 3 weeks before you call
Mhm.
something else in, or tune into one ambient hertz frequency at night for 3 weeks before you make a new change, and just proving to yourself that you can do that.
Mm.
Working that self-commitment muscle is what allows the change to become sustainable. So whether it's for acute or chronic pain, detox, water, food, there's so many mantras and practices to use your intentional energy and attentional energy, as well as, yoga, meditations, all that good stuff. So it's really a guide that I offer clients of like, hey, here's everything that came up today. Go play with this now and see what
Mm.
sticks for you. So it's a compilation of the guidance I usually offer clients in between session that have really helped change my life as well.
Thank you so much. That is such good wisdom, by the way, to like pick one thing, stick with it first, because then you begin to build self-trust and self-confidence that you can actually follow through with something, instead of feeling like, well, here's my New Year's resolutions, and here's the 20 different things that I want to change, and I'm going to do this and this and this and this, and then it's not sustainable. And
Right.
so then you end up, feeling like, well, I knew I wasn't going to follow through, or I knew I couldn't do it. So that's such wisdom to pick one thing, stick with it, and it's that 1% change that actually creates a huge, even a bigger change in the long term. So thank you for that beautiful reminder.
Yes, thank you too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it will help calm down some of the thought patterns that are so ingrained about, as you just said, I knew I couldn't do it, or this is too hard, or it's never going to get better, or I've tried everything,
Mhm.
right? So just
Yeah.
notice your thought patterns as you go, but also work that confidence muscle, because once you start doing it and you're on day 2 or you're on day 4, you're on day 6, you're proving to yourself. And we're always looking for the evidence to support the changes that are being made, because the changes are always being made on a subconscious level. It is our nature to have energy move, for emotions to move. It's energy in motion, right? And at the same time, if we perceive nothing's changing, nothing's going to change. So just work with yourself every step of the way and know that wherever you are is perfect.
Oh, Paige, thank you so much. This has been such an amazing interview. I'm so, so glad to share you with others. Okay, everybody, click below, grab Paige's freebie, reach out to her, follow her. We'll also share some of her social media places where you can find her. And Paige, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you. Thank you too. Appreciate you.
Bye.